Hey guys, it's Melissa here from melissaoatman.com. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, the weekly podcast devoted to all things spirituality and self-improvement. I'm so delighted you're here with me today because we have a very special guest. Today we have with us Miss Alexa Darrin, who is a spiritual coach, and she's here today to talk to us about how to use our Akashic Records to manifest all the things we want in our life. And so I can't wait to jump in and learn all about that today. And I want to welcome you if you are watching us here from New Reality TV. I want to thank you so much for being here with us today, Alexa, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'm very, very interested in the Akashic Records. So I'm very excited about hearing how you use those records in particular. But before we jump in and get started, I would love to just know a little bit about you and how exactly did you start working with Akashic Records?
Yeah, so it's been a winding path. I had a spiritual awakening when I was, I think, like 38 or 39. So I spent a lot of my life not really tapped into spirituality and really searching for meaning and who I was, and a lot of career changes, a lot of searching. And so then when that happened, I just started following the breadcrumbs like a lot of people do when they get into spirituality. It's, you know, the crystals and, astrology are different things that you're pulled to, right? For me, it was crystals and then learning about angels and then the Akashic Records. And it was something about this energetic library that had all this information, all this knowledge. And it's funny because I've always been a big reader. And so it's a different type of library. But I was just really drawn to it, and I didn't know why, and I didn't at that time know didn't know that I could communicate with spirit. I hadn't tried yet. I didn't know that I had any spiritual gifts or that was even something that you could develop. And so then kept learning more, and I tried one kind of method and I found another teacher. And yeah, I think studying with the right mentor, learning how to access them and really using them for understanding who you are. Like that for me, I think is the most powerful thing about the Akashic Records. It's not about knowing if you were like a pharaoh in Egypt or if you live some crazy past life. It's understanding who your soul is that does not change from lifetime to lifetime. So you can understand your strengths and how and why you are the way that you are, and how to leverage those for the most, I think, abundant and fulfilling and joyful life here in the now.
I always find that so interesting when people talk about the Akashic Records because for those who maybe don't really understand what that is, this is like kind of the blueprint of all of the lives that you've had and the different things that you've experienced and lessons that our souls kind of come here to learn. Um, do you find that people, for the most part, are coming to learn the same lessons when they come here each time? Because you talked about how, we can see our past lives, but it's not really about, oh, I was in Egypt and I did this. Are we always coming back and learning the same thing, or is it different each lifetime?
So it's different. We usually spend multiple lifetimes learning the same lesson. And so that's something that I actually look for when I'm doing, the soul blueprint, the soul profile initially with my clients. And you have a primary life lesson and a secondary life lesson. There's other lessons you're going to learn because it's Earth and it's kind of crazy down here, but your soul is focused on a primary and a secondary. And and so it just depends how long it would take you to learn that lesson. It's just different for everyone because you're really learning all the ins and outs of it. And I think there's like, I don't know, over 80 different life lessons that I know of that I check for. And so there's a lot of different ones. And it's really interesting to see some of the pairings of life lessons. So my primary life lesson is hope, and my secondary life lesson is perseverance. And like a life lesson like perseverance, it's maybe because your soul in some past lives, you started some things and you didn't stick it all the way through. And so now you're coming back to really persist through that. And that also means you're gonna hit some challenges, of course. and so I think learning what your life lessons are is really empowering, because then when those challenges come up in your life, when you're faced with those, you can kind of have a little bit of an ascended perspective, a bigger picture, and be like, okay, I know this is my life lesson. I'm going to take a deep breath and try to understand what it is I'm supposed to learn from this, how I can maybe surrender a little bit so that it's easier to learn the lesson. because they don't have to be really hard. We can choose a more easier path if we're more aware and open to learning and self-reflection. And so, yeah, and you're always learning all the different ins and outs, like a life lesson of power. You're going to learn what that's like to have power, to not have power, all the different have power in relationships, all the different ways to experience that. So usually it takes more than one lifetime to do that.
And so do you think that knowing what your life lesson is beneficial? Because probably for most of us, when something comes up that's a big thing in our life, we immediately panic and go, oh my gosh, why is this happening again? But if we know what it is we came here to do, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I've got to learn this. And once I get through this and start learning this, then those things might not happen as frequently.
Yeah, totally. You can recognize the patterns and you see it more as an invitation than like something that's like happening to you,
Yeah.
a problem, or I did something wrong.
Yeah. And a lot of people have that attitude. Like so many people, if like one thing happens that seems like, I like to call them tower moments, where in our lives it shakes everything up and we're like, what just happened? But for a lot of people, they almost have the victim mentality of, why is this happening to me again? And maybe I did something in a past life and I'm being punished, or what did I do to be punished? I know like my mom sometimes would have that attitude. And uh, if there are people out there listening who go, yeah, that's me, that's how I react to situations, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that. And I think, just acknowledging too, we come down to earth to incarnate into human bodies to learn and grow. And so everything's not going to go exactly the way that we want, right? Part of the journey is learning how to create our own experience, right? If you're thinking about manifestation or, creating your own reality, but also how to navigate through the challenges, because that's why we came here. If we didn't have challenges to learn from, then we wouldn't be learning and growing as a soul, and there wouldn't be a point to that. And so I think it's really important if you're faced with a challenge and you're catching yourself saying, why is this happening to me? Like, I don't deserve this. Why is this happening again? This isn't fair. To take a step back and to ask yourself, what if I just flipped it on its head? What if I asked myself, how could this be happening for me? If I just play this little game for a second, and just have fun with it and say, okay, how could this be beneficial to me? And I think it's also that exercise becomes more helpful if you look at past things, past challenges, right? Because when you're in something, when you're in the middle of a challenge, you can't see yet how it benefits you. But if you reflect back on your whole life and you look back at some of the challenges and the curveballs, the twists and turns, and you see how that actually led you to someplace better or that made you a better person, you can say, okay, well, if that bad, quote, bad thing, right? If that ended up in my favor, then maybe this could also end up that way. So maybe I'll just be open to that. And I think I'm always a fan of trying to cultivate a relationship with your higher self and spirit and your guide. So you can ask also, right?
Yeah.
Meditate on it. Take a beat, right? In that moment, take some deep breaths and just tune into your heart or your higher self or whatever your higher power is, to just think, okay, please show me how this is happening for me and not to me, or how this, might lead me to something that I hadn't yet imagined.
I think that's such good advice, especially because of everything that's happening right now in our world and what we're seeing in the society around us. It's scary for a lot of people. And um, I feel like maybe just detaching a little bit. One of the things that I keep hearing over and over again from like my guides and from other people even that I've heard is to observe, not absorb. So would you say maybe even with your own problems, even though it might seem hard to do, but if you can observe what's going on instead of just being fully in it and absorbing everything that's going on, it's easier to try to come up with solutions too to things that are happening.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that's why practices like journaling and meditating and going out in nature and going on a walk, like getting sort of out of that situation. And so you can sort of just open up to the bigger picture. Then I think that's becomes easier to see things a little more clearly in that way, especially journaling, right? When you kind of ask yourself, like, ask yourself the question in journaling and see what answers come out as you begin to write. I love that for becoming more detached. I
Yeah,
think
I love journaling too. I think it's such an amazing tool. What I would love to know more about is that you said you help people with manifesting because you kind of work with them with the Akashic Records with their life purpose. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I access through the Akashic Records is what's called your soul's manifesting blueprint. And so paired with your soul profile, understanding who you are on the soul level, that can give you a really clear picture of how to make decisions, how to take action, um, to manifest whatever it is that you're trying to manifest. Because I think some of the misconceptions about manifesting is that there is the one formula, the one size fits all. Lots of manifestation teachers like, follow my tried and true method. And then you do it and it doesn't work and it's really frustrating. And that happened to me as well. I think that, and so, but if you understand that each of us, we have our own unique gifts and strengths and ways that we experience our divinity here on earth. And so if we can use that blueprint then to make those decisions, and there's these different kind of factors and elements that I map out for clients, and then that gives you a roadmap for how to make decisions and take aligned action towards the thing you're trying to create. Because when you're aligned with your soul's blueprint, when you're aligned with your purpose, that's when more synchronicities show up. That's when you're more in flow. When you're pursuing something that's in alignment with who you are, it's a lot easier than chasing some goal that's just outside of who you are and what you came here to do.
Do you find that when you work with people, that a lot of people are maybe not really in a career or in a place in life that really meshes up with what you're seeing that their purpose is?
I think it's a mix. Yeah. So I have some clients they're transitioning into something new, and so they've kind of got somewhat of an idea of where they want to go, and it's refinement. And some people are, they've worked in corporate as something in a particular career, and now they want to do some version of that on their own, in their own way, more aligned with how they would want to show up in the world. But it's definitely my clients are usually people who are in transition or wanting to step into a transition and an expansion, so to speak, too, because stepping into something bigger and bolder than what they were doing before.
Do you find that when people are stuck, like they might be going through life and just saying, okay, I just feel like I'm just in this void area and I just feel stuck and like nothing's moving forward, using the Akashic Record is one way to help kind of push them forward and get them going in the right direction?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because part of what I look for when I do their initial soul blueprint is looking at the energy that you bring into the world, where your soul originated from, what your archetypes are, which is kind of like your soul level personality traits, your spiritual gifts, things that you've done in past lives, like some of those patterns. And so when you see that, it can be really validating for a lot of clients because they're like, oh, well, that's why I'm so interested in that. I hadn't thought of that as a career or as a part of a strength of mine. But now that I see it here in my soul's blueprint, it's everything together is making so much sense. And so when you combine that with their experiences here in this lifetime, then you can get a clear picture of what they have to either give as a service if they're going to go create their own business, or if they're going to change careers, what skills and gifts they have that would be in alignment with a new career.
And do your clients feel like after that they have done this, do they feel, can they feel the alignment? Do they feel less frustrated and happier with the way their lives go after they've done a session like this and realize like, oh, you know what? The reason I kept banging my head was because I wasn't doing what I came here to do.
Yeah, so I don't primarily work with clients in single sessions. So I do offer single session Akashic Record readings, but I primarily work with clients inside of a 3-month program. That's like a coaching healing program where we use the Akashic Records and your soul's blueprint and your manifesting blueprint over, the course of 3 months to clear out a lot of the energetic clutter that's, clouding your intuition. We heal past life wounds and blocks. and karmic complexes, all that kind of stuff, inner child healing. So there's, the beginning, it's really clearing all that stuff out and doing some deep healing, doing intuition development, and then once you do that, then it's easier to get clear on your purpose and to be really confident in that. So it's a journey that we're on together, and we're going back to the soul blueprint. I mean, my clients talk about, they read it every week. They just love it and get something new from it every time, which is also why I like to give them like it's like a 25-page written, report sort of that they get. Right. And so, because I think that when you're trying to change your life and you're trying to get into alignment, and you're trying to manifest something that's different from what you're in, it's not going to come from just one session with a psychic or a healer. It's not going to come from just reading a book and soaking up the information. It's going to come from deeper work. And so there's a lot of things that I do with my clients, lots of tools and guided meditations and energetic activations and all kinds of resources, right, that help you to anchor in all the information that they're getting and all the healing, and then create a really practical plan. Always have been and am about practical spirituality. And I think not just learning about something because it's interesting or cool, but okay, how do I use this in my life to make my life better? Because that's where we're here, right? So that, I think, really grounding it and creating a plan for how you're going to experience your divinity, so to speak, how you're going to experiencing yourself as a powerful creator in this life. It takes more than one session, and it takes some, I think, thought and work and reflection.
Okay, so my follow-up question to that then is, and this may be hard for you to answer because I know sometimes it's difficult for mediums to really explain how they work, but how do you access someone's Akashic record?
So it's pretty simple. I just do it through a prayer. I do a little bit of breath work and then a prayer, and then I access it through my claircognizance is how I primarily access it. Unless I'm like trying to access a specific past life, and then I'm like, okay, show me this past life because there's a reason I need to see that past life.
So are you then in your mind's eye seeing the blueprint of the person that you're reading for in their Akashic record?
No, it's just claircognizance. So it's a knowing. So I've got like, my frame of reference, right? The Akashic records, they're only, and this is a whole deep topic, right? But it's just it's a vast amount of information, right? And so when, and there's lots of different ways to read the records and to interact with them. But again, because I'm going in for very practical information, it's like a checklist of things. And so that's why I just use my claircognizance. I'm not trying to have this like technicolor experience. It's like, okay, we're checking for these things. What's the life lesson? What's this? Going down the list to get that clear picture. And then for the manifesting blueprint as well, looking at the different variables, getting that information, validating everything with a pendulum, and then creating the kind of the profile from that.
What are the most common life lessons do you see when you're working with people? Are there some that you're like, oh, I see this more than others?
It's interesting because I've got perseverance and hope, and I have seen that quite a bit, or the perseverance, I feel like, has shown up quite a bit. But no, there hasn't been common ones. Self-determination, I'm thinking about recently, self-determination and power and wisdom. Creativity is one. Creativity is my husband's and my daughter's one of their top 2 life lessons. Prevalent in our house. And
What is
yeah.
someone who has creativity as their life lesson? Does that show up in that they need to be creative in what they do for a living, or?
No, so creativity is a lesson where you're learning to be creative in the way that you solve problems and the way that you navigate the world. So you don't necessarily have to be a professional creative to do it, right? But learning how to be, and sometimes it's for souls who have they don't have creativity in their kind of soul's DNA, so to speak, in their blueprint. And so they need to learn how to kind of break out of, the box that they've been in, or to kind of embrace more creativity in the way they approach things.
Do you find that certain professions tend to have like one type of life purpose, or does that not even matter? It doesn't really, there's no pattern there.
No, and in terms of life purpose, it's not like there's like a checklist of life purposes that I check for. That's sort of a culmination of everything, and that's a lot more nuanced, right? Where life lessons, it's like, okay, there's a certain number. For soul archetypes, there's a certain number of those. But for purpose, that's way more nuanced. And so that's about really pulling together everything and your kind of story and what you want your mission to be.
It's all like, I'm sure people out there listening are like, this is a lot to take in, but
Yeah, I know. Big questions, big
yes.
questions.
Are there any other ways that you use the Akashic Records to help people? Or is it primarily just you're using it to help them figure out, what they came here to do?
So also for clearing like karmic complexes is what I call them and my mentor calls them. But basically, blocks and vows and wounds, things from past lives that you're carrying in, or things that you're on the soul level that are kind of interfering with your ability to live most expansively. So there's healing also that we do with it.
There are people, so this is an interesting question, but let's say that someone in a past life took a vow of poverty. Do you see that seeping into another lifetime, and you have to heal that and say, okay, well, that vow of poverty was for that lifetime, not this lifetime, but we're seeing that you're not abundant because you're still thinking that you have this vow that you've taken?
Yeah, that was actually a big, I think, impetus for me to get into the manifesting and the manifesting blueprint and help my clients with that, because I had gotten a wave of clients that I think it was like 3 in a short amount of time that I'd taken a vow of poverty in a past life. But on the soul level, their energy, they were like sacral chakra, like creative, abundant. They were supposed to be a soul that would show us, be an example of great abundance here on earth. But they were going against that because of the vow they had taken in a past life. For example, they were wealthy, but they were a woman, and their husband was wealthy, and the money was used. They lived a life that was horrible. They felt like a prisoner, things like that. And so I was seeing that, and I wanted to know how to help them on a deeper level, because you can clear the vow, but there's also some deeper things we can do to really anchor that in. And so it got me thinking, I think that combined with, I think a lot of the manifesting, teachers out there that can give kind of the false promises. I think that together made me really interested in empowering people to understand how they could take control, and that they had a lot more power than they knew.
Yeah, because it sounds like when you're working with people, everyone manifests differently. Even
Yeah.
though there's a lot of people out there saying, here's this one surefire method to manifesting, and use it and you'll be able to manifest, but it doesn't really work like that. It depends on the person, and that makes sense. Oh, good. We're not broken, people. Just we've got to learn how to manifest our own way.
Yeah.
So, if people are out there listening and they're very interested in what you're doing, and maybe they want to book a session with you, or maybe they just want to follow you and learn more about what it is that you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So I'm at alexadarrin.com, and my Instagram is at alexadarrin. So pretty.
Perfect. And so I was wondering if uh, you would be okay with me pulling a card for everyone today, just to give them kind of a little message,
Love it.
take with them. So I'm going to use Angela Rose's deck. I just love her deck because she always gives people like things they can do to take with them, to work on healing, or, whatever it is that we need to work on. So I'm going to pull a card and see what wants to come out for the audience today. And so what I have is Wild You. Are you wanting to express yourself? Throw down your hair, move your body. There's within all of us an inner wise and feminine leader waiting to unleash herself. How did you express yourself as a child? Connect back to your inner wise, feminine, intuitive self. The action that goes with this card is, how would it feel to express yourself? What do you do that feels free and soulful? And can you do this today? And the mantra that goes with this card is, it is safe to express myself.
Love that so much because we've, been talking about purpose, and really there's a lot of different versions of purpose, but if you boil it down, it's just our purpose here is to be the most fullest expression of ourselves. Just to whoever you are, just to be just as fully expressed and extreme and out there as possible. Be your wild soul self.
Let your hair down.
Yeah.
Be you. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really good advice. And I really want to thank you for being here today and sharing everything that you do, because I think it's so incredibly important. So many of us feel like we just got dropped here on Earth and we don't know what we're doing here, and we're just aimlessly wandering around going, what do I do now? So it's so great to have tools that you can use to have a deeper understanding of why it is that we're here. Because it's like you said earlier, we didn't come here to not learn. If you're here and you're not learning anything, there's no purpose in being here. And I really love that statement.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you for being here with us today, too. You can go and check out her website. I will have that in the show links. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe. Please leave a positive review from wherever you're listening. And the best compliment you can pay me is to share this podcast with anyone you think might benefit. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'm sending you guys so much love and light. I want to thank you again, Alexa, for being here with us, and thank all of you. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.